Welcome into Boxing Scene's top stories here on ProBox TV. Don't forget, download the ProBox TV app. Never fall behind in your boxing news. Also, the best way to see our Wednesday night fights. So, inflation, it's a big topic right now in this election year. Not only that, it has always happened in sports, but one thing that makes boxing unique is when a quarterback makes a lot more money and drives up the price of all the quarterbacks, you still see him on Sunday. The idea that it might lead to inactivity in boxing. That's right. Eddie Hearn saying, quote, "I don't think Crawford will ever fight again." That Terence Crawford, a lot of people's pound-for-pound king, will not fight because he is focused on a fight with Canelo Alvarez and won't accept anything less. Well, Canelo has shown no interest in that fight, so could the pound-for-pound king at 37 be stalled out in his career? Jimmy Smith in studio to help us answer the questions. Of course, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, and ESPN boxing analyst Timothy Bradley. Chris, I'll start with you. Is Eddie Hearn just doing promoter stuff, or is there a real chance we won't see Terence Crawford again because of the inflated values caused by Turki Al-Sheikh in his mega fights?
Well, Eddie Hearn's always doing promoter stuff because he is a promoter. He wears that cap at all times. But I actually agree with Eddie on this one. I've been saying that for a while. To me, it seems like it's Canelo or bust for Crawford. And I actually agree with Crawford as well. I think that with the stage that he's at in his career, in terms of legacy, he's done it all. There's not much more for him to accomplish in the sport. He's going to go down as the most accomplished fighter probably who's ever lived, especially in the four-belt era. And he deserves the big-time paydays. There was a long stretch of his career where he was not getting those huge paydays. And now, at this point, at 37 years old, so I think he's going to be 37 soon. At 37 years old, the type of fight that's going to get him up so he can go back to training camp and get back into that ring, it's got to be at the highest level. And when you are the top of the sport, the only thing higher is Canelo. And when we're talking about Canelo, you're talking about huge money. I just don't know if there's any other fights out there that would really interest Crawford, one, in terms of getting up for the fight in order to go to training camp, and two, to pay the ticket price that he deserves at this point of his career.
But, Paulie, when you look at it, do you see how Chris sees it, which is essentially a unique problem to Terence Crawford in his career, that just where he is, there's not a lot of places to go? Or is it because of the hyperinflation in boxing caused by big cards and big paydays? We saw this a little bit with PBC when they were spending huge money. It really pushed up the rates, and we saw kind of a dip in boxing afterward. Is this a Terence Crawford problem, or is it a payment problem?
Jimmy, that's a great question to pose. I think in Crawford's situation, it's not necessarily the inflation of the sport. I think some of that has always a little bit to do with things. Well, in Crawford's situations, he's in a unique spot. Most people will never be world champions in boxing, let alone the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Crawford has done both of those things, and he is currently in that position now. So I think when it comes to that point, and as the champ Chris mentioned, he's maybe the most accomplished fighter we've seen in a four-belt era. It leads to some questions where are you going to put yourself at risk for lesser money, or at least, the average kind of money you've made before? Now you started to taste a little bit of money. You started to taste that Turki Al-Sheikh money, and really the only thing that can satisfy both your hunger for legacy and finances is the Canelo fight. It's at a certain point when you've accomplished everything, Chris, you mentioned, you go for Canelo. Yeah, you could go for the biggest money possible, really, and in the realistic sense. And that is Canelo. And I think if he can't get that, there's nothing really that's going to tickle his fancy. There's nothing really that's going to get him motivated. As a matter of fact, there's probably fights at 154 pounds that are way more risky and pay a fraction of what Canelo would pay, even maybe a fraction of what Crawford's already made in his career. So it's really, it leaves him in a position where he's sort of become too great for his own good, and there's nothing really left to accomplish except try to get the biggest cash cow possible, and in this situation, the biggest cash cow possible is actually kind of beatable too, so usually it's like you look at it like, it's a cash out fight. Not necessarily. With Canelo, it's not necessarily just the cash out fight. It's the cash out fight that gives you the legacy, the money, and everything else added on top of what you've already done. And that's hard to double. That's a difficult situation to kind of replace when that's the only situation you kind of put yourself into due to, let's face it, due to his greatness, really.
Tim, when you look at it, everybody on this panel right now, you guys all won world titles. You're some of the best of your era in boxing. Tim, can I ask you to put your fan hat on for 1 second? Everybody's seeing this from a boxing perspective about legacy and the money he could make, but are the fans kind of missing out, who some of them maybe just getting to know Terence Crawford at a big fight in his last few fights that want to see more of him? Are they kind of left out in the cold if he does decide to walk away rather than fight someone other than Canelo?
Look, let me put it like this. Once Canelo's gone, once Crawford decides to hang him up, once Inoue decides to hang him up, I mean, who do we have to hold on to, guys? Like, who's that next coming? Who's going to be the next Canelo? Like, we're missing that, man. So, like, while Crawford is here, let's continue to give him his flowers. While Canelo is here, let's continue to give him his flowers, because once they're gone, man, boxing's going to be kind of dead. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be kind of dead. Usyk already came out and said,
but our guys, Tim, our guys like Canelo, the reason for that, though, you're not letting other guys get their shot at becoming stars. You're just holding it for yourself, and guys don't really get to grow. Benavidez, had he fought Canelo 2 years ago, would have beat him, and then you have that star growing for the last 2 years. Instead, you don't. You know, the one we got.
Paulie, you don't know that for a fact that he would have beat him. You don't know that for a fact.
You don't. You really think Canelo beats Benavidez?
No, but I'm just saying, Paulie, you don't know that for a fact. I think that Canelo beats Benavidez right now. I think he beats Benavidez.
But I don't think, dude.
But I don't think Canelo believes that he can. No, on the real. But I'm just saying, man, you got Usyk is saying he got 2 more fights, you know, and he's out of the game. So, you know, right now Crawford is, again, he's done accomplishing belts, man. You know, I mean, 2-time undisputed champion. He wants the big money fight. He wants to sell off, get that big money fight against Canelo Alvarez, you know, and then retire. But if he can't get the Canelo fight, what? I mean, what else is there to do in boxing? He's already accomplished everything you can do in boxing, if not the #1 spot as well. So why continue? Why continue to take the damage? Crawford don't have to work a day in his life, guys. I'm letting y'all know he is perfectly fine. You know, if he chooses to fight, then we can. Hey, you know what? Let's support him. But if he doesn't choose to fight, he doesn't need boxing to sustain his lifestyle. He is perfectly fine.
Yeah, no, he's never gonna have to work a day in his life. His kids are not gonna have to work. But as good as he is, he never had that generational money fight.
Yeah.
You know, a guy like Canelo's grandkids would have to fight. Like he's made so much money. Terence hasn't been able to touch that, and he deserves it. And that's my point about whatever the ticket price is, that guy should get it. And it's unfortunate it took so long for the public to realize his greatness and to see him where he's at. But he doesn't have the dance partner. So I understand where he's at, where he's like, listen, it's Canelo or bust, because like you said, Paulie, those other fights that are around, they're risky and they're not going to pay. Canelo pays. Does Crawford need to do anything else? I think we all agree, no. He's done it all. He is the man. He's the pound-for-pound king. But in terms of the kind of money that he deserves to have made, he hasn't made that yet. So if that Canelo fight is still dangling, I understand why he's hanging around, and Canelo's sitting there deciding he's going to do this on a whim anyway. He's starting to kick back a little bit and be like, that fight could happen. Yeah. So of course Crawford's going to sit back and be like, all right, well now this guy thinks this fight can happen, so I got to stay ready. It's a tough situation for Crawford.
Yeah, in Canelo's situation, he's the one that said, last week or 2 weeks ago when they were talking about the Crawford fight, the Crawford and Fundora mandatory being called or something like that. He's like, well, that fight might not necessarily happen. Why wouldn't it happen unless he's talking about that he might fight Canelo? Obviously, maybe Crawford's not going to take it anyway. I think that's a very winnable fight for Crawford, the Fundora fight, but it may not tickle his fancy. It's kind of like a been there, done that kind of thing. It's hard to. I tell you, when you got those silk pajamas, like Marvin Hagler said, it's hard to get motivated. What can get Crawford motivated? And that's Canelo. Really, these Fundora kind of fights, he's won that level of fight already. He's gotten those kind of belts already. It's only the Canelo fight for him.
Guys, it's a simple yes or no. I'm very curious about this, gentlemen. Take a survey of this panel. Do you think he fights again? Terence Crawford, start with you, Chris. Go.
I said no. I've been saying that for months. I think if it's Canelo or bust for me.
Paulie, what do you think?
I think he fights Canelo. I said 2 years ago that Canelo would never fight David Benavidez. I am right. I'm going to be right again. Canelo and Crawford will be made.
You heard the confidence, Tim. What do you think?
I think he fights again, and I agree with Paulie. I think he fights Canelo Alvarez. I think that, there's things that's moving, things that's been said in the background that we don't know of. I think he fights Canelo.
You heard it. Our panel says either he doesn't fight or it is Canelo or bust. Big payday. We all understand. I got to say, from sitting behind this desk, must be nice to call your shots like that, just like we call the shots when it comes to boxing news. Once again, download the app, ProBox TV. Get it now and get ready for Canelo in 2 weeks. The Money Man, don't forget.
He's the pride of Guadalajara, the Mexican maestro, the unified super middleweight champion of the world, Canelo Alvarez. His challenger, undefeated knockout artist and pride of Puerto Rico, Edgar Berlanga. It's prime time.
Canelo versus Berlanga, plus Lara versus Garcia, Saturday, September 14th, live on PBC pay-per-view on Prime Video.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.